What's up guys, and welcome back to Software Solutions, and today we're talking about Call of Duty Warzone 2 Season 4 Reloaded and its latest updates. Now, yes ladies and gentlemen, I do know that every single person out there that's playing this game right now, even console players, not just PC players, console players as well, has been having problems, but most of all, people that's using computers, gaming machines, gaming rigs have been losing FPS inside this game. Not just that, a lot of people have been experiencing where they get the amount of FPS that they should be doing. Like me, for instance, when I play this game, I do about 140 FPS as max while I'm playing on my specific settings, and my game looks really good. And then it feels like I'm doing 10 FPS, even though I can see with my MSI Afterburner right here at the top over here that I'm doing about 140 while playing this game. Now, as you can see, I'm doing about 120, 125 to 130 FPS here in the lobby. I normally do 150 FPS here in the lobby without recording. I am using OBS right now, so it is using my VRAM and it's also using my graphics card, so I will be doing less frames. You aren't recording, so you will get the best benefit out of the FPS out of this game by just following my guidelines, and you should be good to go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to jump straight into this video, show you the best settings that you can be using right now for the latest season, which is Reloaded, and all the updates that are released to make the game run smooth. Now, yes, ladies and gentlemen, don't expect too much, because they are still releasing updates to fix the rest of the game, because some of the things have been fixed and some of them are still absolutely fucked. Now, don't expect too much. I mean, I'm not the developer for this game. I can't do magic, but what I can do is make you use the correct settings right now for the latest season. So all you need to do is follow my guidelines and you should be good to go. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so the first thing I highly recommend you go ahead and do is this over here. You're going to come to this little gear icon over here and then come to graphics and then come to the quality tab over here. Now I'm going to go over every single person's machine out there that you are currently running right now, from high end to mid tier to low tier end machines. Now, the first thing is the upscaling over here. I'm using Intel to make this game look like a AAA title game while I'm playing the game. Now, for the people out there that is running high-end machines, I highly recommend you go ahead and use this upscaling. It does not matter if you're using an AMD graphics card or an NVIDIA graphics card. You can use this upscaling no matter what GPU you have, no matter what CPU you have. You will be good to go. I highly recommend you go and use this upscaling. It's a very good upscaling to make the game run very good and also look fantastic, almost like a AAA title game, even though we all know that this game is unoptimized. Okay, now if your machine can run this, I highly recommend you go ahead and use this upscaling, and then go over here where it says show more and have this at ultra quality. Scroll down and have this at 90% on the video memory scale. Come down, have this at normal, high, high, and high. You should be good to go. Now, my specific machine that I'm running right now is a 9700K water cooled and overclocked, an RTX 2060 OC overclocked, 16 gigs of RAM with different timings and overclocked. I run my game perfectly fine with my machine. Now, for the people out there that is struggling and don't use this upscaling or can't use this upscaling, or that's using this upscaling and getting lots of FPS loss while playing the game, so let's jumping down to a lower spec, or you still have a high-end machine but you don't prefer this. I highly recommend that you go ahead and click on NVIDIA image scaling. You're going to come over here to NVIDIA image scaling, go to ultra quality, and then this is going to be your own personal preference depending on the sharpness that you want in the game. Now, it's your own personal preference on NVIDIA image scaling sharpening, okay? Mine's on 10 right now. You're going to need to play around with it depending on your monitor. If you have a gaming monitor, a display like a laptop display, a normal screen, a TV, or whatever the case might be that you're playing your game on right now, it's going to depend on the sharpening inside here. Now, I highly recommend you go ahead and use this upscaling if you do not want to use the Intel upscaling over here. I highly recommend you go ahead and go with ultra quality, go over here, and then use your own personal preference. You're going to come over here and have this at full mic SMAA T2 times, so you don't have jagged edges in your game. You're going to come over here and have this at normal. No, you do not need to push that to high or ultra quality. Normal is perfectly fine. Video memory scale if you are running a high-end machine, and that can run this perfectly fine. Okay, this on normal, high, high, and high. Okay, now for the people out there that's running mid-tier machines and that's struggling with FPS in this game, I highly recommend that you go ahead and use this upscaling over here, which is called AMD FSR. Now, yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can use AMD FSR as an NVIDIA user as well. So if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you can use this upscaling as well. I have an NVIDIA card and I sometimes use this upscaling just to see how much FPS I push out with AMD FSR. Now, if your machine is really struggling a lot, I highly recommend you go ahead and use AMD FSR 1.0, not 2.1. 2.0 is actually more dog shit than 1.0, so I highly recommend you use AMD FSR 1.0. Come down over here and have this either at balanced or you can put it at quality. You can even go all the way up to ultra quality, but it's going to depend on your machine that you're currently running. I have a friend that is running a 1050 Ti. It's a very, very old graphics card, and he has this at quality like this. AMD FSR 1.0, full mic SMA 82 times so he doesn't have jagged edges in his game. Normal over here, but then this is going to need to change. Now, you are not going to use all your VRAM in your GPU because the 1050 Ti is a 4 gig graphics card. Now, what I told him to go ahead and do is pull this all the way down to 50 and have this at 50 over here. I highly recommend you go ahead and do that if you're struggling with FPS and you have a lower budget gaming machine. I highly recommend you put the video memory scale at 50% and you should be good to go. Then something you're going to need to change is change this from normal to low. Now, no, ladies and gentlemen, your game will not look like that. It will still look like this. It will look perfectly fine like that with this at low, but make sure you make this to high, high, and high. Always these three at high, otherwise your game's going to look like absolute dog shit, and you don't want that. You don't want your game to look like you want to bleach out your eyes. Please don't change this to anything like low. Don't do that. Keep these three options at high. Now, something I want to go over is a lot of people don't prefer AMD FSR 1.0. Then they go ahead and click on this upscaling and go to Fidelity FX Cache. Then they go ahead and change this to a certain strength because this is Fidelity FX Cache's strength on the screen, the sharpness and the strength of the sharpness inside the game. A lot of people are still using Fidelity FX Cache even with medium to high-end machines. They're still using and preferring Fidelity FX Cache. Okay, now you can play around with these settings. I can't tell you specifically what you're going to need to use inside here. You are going to need to try out one of these and see which one gives you the most FPS in the game. Now, if you're using Fidelity FX Cache and you're running a high-end machine, medium-end machine to a low-end machine, whatever machine you are running, but you're using Fidelity FX Cache, I highly recommend you use full mic SMA 82 times so you don't have jagged edges in your game, like characters, walls, and stuff like that. I highly recommend you put at full mic SMA 82 times, have this at normal, and then you're going to change this to your own personal preference. I highly recommend just going like this, 75. You can actually type it in yourself just by pressing the backspace button and then actually typing it in and then press enter and it will apply it to that you want it to be. You can play around with this video memory scale until it suits you, until you see you do more FPS in your game. Now I'm going to show you how to do that so you can actually see if this is benefiting you or not, because you're going to need to find out which is going to work best for you. Okay, you're going to scroll down and you're going to come over here. Have this at normal. I do recommend normal for everyone out there, but if your machine is struggling and you have everything like this over here perfectly fine, everything's running good there, but you feel that the game is still losing frames, you can change this from normal to low. Your game will still look like that. It won't look like that. Don't worry about it. You'll still be good to go. There's not a lot of visual difference between normal and low. People are just taking advantage of the normal version if they have higher end machines, and the game can perform really well on the normal setting. Now, these three settings always at high. It doesn't matter if you're running a low tier, mid tier, to a high end machine, to a NASA fucking machine. You don't have to change this. Keep this to high, otherwise your game's going to look like absolute dog shit, and you don't want that. Okay, now let's go over the rest of the settings in this game that you're going to need to change to have your game run smooth and perfectly fine. You're going to scroll down to where it says clutter draw distance, and you're going to have this at short. Particle quality at low. Particle quality level basically just plays a role with this one over here. Keep it at very low. You do not need this. Bullet impacts, you're going to leave this on. It has no FPS impact on your GPU, CPU, or your RAM, or your game itself. Keep this on. You do not need to put this off. Damage layers is your own personal preference. You can go ahead and turn this on if you want to see damage layers in the game. It literally tells you on the right hand side what this option does. Every single option over here tells you what it does on the right hand side. As I go down, it changes and it shows you what this actually does. This one over here where it says shader quality is not a thing anymore. Back in the day with season 1, 2, and 3, you had to change this to high to make your gun skin look really good. But right now you can leave this at low and your gun skin will look exactly the same as what it would when you put it at high. So leave it at low so it's not eating your FPS for no reason. You're going to come down and go to tessellation and keep this at off. You do not need this in the game, so go ahead and turn it off. On-demand text to streaming, off, off, leave it off. You do not need this. I don't use it. You shouldn't be using it. Turn it off. It's an FPS hogger. Streaming quality at low, volumetric quality at low, physics quality at off. This is the worst option I've ever seen in Call of Duty, and I don't even know why it's in here. And I had a comment down below in my video actually saying to me, yo dude, when you stand by the lighthouse and you look at the shoreline, you can actually see that there's a big difference between having this at default, water caustics, wave wetness, and then water caustics and wave wetness. If you choose these, who in this game is playing the game for the scenery? I would like to know. The guy that left me the comment, maybe you deep dive into seeing what the water quality difference is. No one gives a fuck about the water quality. Literally, no one gives a fuck. No one gives a flying fuck about the water quality. They are there to play the game to fuck people up, not to look at the scenery, because then I might as well go outside and go to the beach. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I highly recommend you to leave this at default. You don't need to see how wet the water is. Honest to God, you don't need to do that. Because why the fuck is this even an option inside this fucking game right now? I don't know. I really don't know. I'll keep ranting over this option until they fucking remove it. Go to default and leave it at default. Shadow map resolution at very low. Screen space shadows at off. Spot shadow quality at low. Spot cache at high right now at this very moment with the reloaded version. No, you do not need to put this at ultra, medium, or low. You're going to keep it at high. People has asked me, yo dude, is there a reason why you put spot cache on high? The reason why I put spot cache on high is stuttering. This can actually help for stuttering in the game, that you have less stuttering in the game. So if you change this to low or medium or ultra, you might get stuttering. So I highly recommend you go with high, and you should be good to go for the latest season and the reloaded version. Keep it at high. Particle lighting at low. Ambient occlusion off, off, always off. You do not need this at all. Turn it the fuck off. It's a multiplayer game. You do not need this. Screen space reflections off. Static reflection quality low. Weather grid volumes, you do not need to see the fucking weather in this game, so please for the love of fuck turn this off and just leave it the fuck off. Depth of field is your own personal preference. World motion blur is your own personal preference. Weapon motion blur is your own personal preference. Form grain is your own personal preference. But all of these, I highly recommend you go ahead and turn them off and form grain to 0.00. But this one is your own personal preference. Literally your own personal preference. I can give you advice by turning these things off. Yes, makes the game much better, to be honest with you, because it's a multiplayer game, not a single player game. But this one over here, your own personal preference. I've seen people actually pulling up the film grain. I don't know why they do that, but that's their own personal preference, not mine. Mine is at 0.00, so you can just copy everything inside here and you should be good to go. But then the upscaling is going to depend on your machine. Like I said, what you are running right now is what you're going to need to select inside here for the best FPS for your specific machine. Because if I go and let's just click here and I say discard, I come back to this. It will come back to this over here, the Intel, because this is the upscaling I'm using right now with my specific machine. Okay, I have this over here at ultra quality, 90%, normal, high, high, and high. This is what I'm using for my rig. Okay, now something I just want to point out there is while you are doing this upscalings and stuff like that to see which works best for your specific machine, I highly recommend that you go ahead and do this over here. You come to interface, come a little bit down, scroll down until you see it says telemetry, and you're going to keep this on all on. You're going to put that on, then you can see your FPS, your latency, your packet loss, your GPU temperature, your CPU's timing, your GPU's clock time, your VRAM usage, and your CPU's timing, and the actual time. I highly recommend you go ahead and put them all on, or you can just say like essentials, and it will give you the essentials, okay? But I do recommend keeping all on and leave them all on. Now, once you have done changing every single graphic setting, like this over here, you've changed every single graphic setting to your specific graphic settings because of your certain type of machine, I highly recommend you go ahead and click on the apply button and click on apply. Something I want to point out is this over here, interface, and then come to color customization. A lot of people don't use this, and I highly recommend that you go ahead and actually use this yourself. Please go ahead and do this. It does help with the game's vibrance and how the game looks in general. It makes the game pop a lot, and I highly recommend you go ahead and do this. Go to color filter and put this at 2. Have color filter target at both 100%, 100%, and then scroll down, and then these are going to be your own personal preference. I have my team and my party the exact same color, and then I have my enemies at magenta pink or just pink in general, I have this like this. Please go ahead and change this to your own personal preference. I highly recommend you go ahead and do that. Now, the most important thing that you're going to need to do in this game is this over here. You're going to come to the graphics options and you're going to come to display and then come to restart shader optimization. You're going to click on this and then say restart. Now, I don't need to do this because I've already done this, so I highly recommend you, after you've changed your settings to the settings I told you to change to, please click on restart and then it's going to restart your game. Okay, it will restart your game, but you need to go out of the game for it to restart. Then at the top left corner here, it's going to say installing shaders to optimize your gameplay. Let that finish your shader installation. Let it finish, okay? Don't touch your keyboard, don't touch your mouse while it's installing. Because basically what it's doing, it's applying the settings I just gave you to use. So when you start using that options and the settings and stuff like that, let the shaders finish installing before you start clicking and start playing your game. Because while the shaders are installing at the top there and you are starting to, like, I don't know, go through the gameplay, or you want to start jumping into a game, while the shaders are installing, you are going to break your game and your game's going to run like dog shit. Ladies and gentlemen, if this worked for you, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are new here, and as always, I'm just here to help the Call of Duty community as best I can, and peace out.